Did anyone ever tell you that life after 70 feels less like entering a golden chapter and more like stepping into a foggy mirror? Not because of what you see, but because of what begins to disappear. There comes a quiet turning point, one that no calendar ever marks. A moment when the house grows a little too quiet, when the phone rings a little less often, and when the reflection in the mirror holds your gaze a little longer. Life after 70 doesn't arrive with a crash. It settles in like dusk, slow, soft, and almost unnoticeable, until you realize the light has changed. People talk about aging like it's all about aching knees and silver hair, but they rarely speak of the deeper shifts, the ones that twist under the surface. The shrinking of your world, the echo of your own voice in empty rooms, the sudden realization that you've become invisible in the very world you helped build. These aren't just side effects of aging. They're quiet, aching truths that most people never prepare you for. And yet, almost everyone will face them. In this video, we're peeling back the polite curtain draped over old age. We're diving into 5 hard, often hidden realities that start showing up once you cross into your 70s and beyond. They might not be the things your doctor warns you about, but they're the ones that shape your days, your emotions, and the way you see yourself. So stay with me, because in facing these truths head-on, there's something deeply powerful. Not just in naming what hurts, but in realizing you're not facing it alone. It happens so gradually, you almost don't notice it. Until one morning, the silence becomes louder than your own thoughts. In the early years of retirement, life after 70 still feels full. Friends drop by. The phone rings. Laughter echoes from birthdays, dinners, and spontaneous get-togethers. But slowly, quietly, the tempo changes. Not all at once, like a song fading, not ending. You begin to sense it in the small things. Fewer invitations, longer pauses between calls, a birthday forgotten, not out of malice, but simply overlooked. This is the invisible side of growing older that few people talk about. Not the physical pains that can be measured or medicated, but the emotional erosion, the subtle shrinking of your social world. Aging after 70 isn't just about joints or prescriptions. It's about disconnection from people, from rhythms you used to know, from the sense of being included. It's about noticing that your once vibrant social calendar now sits mostly blank. Not because you chose solitude, but because life, in its relentless busyness, quietly moved forward without you. And here's the painful part. Even when you're surrounded by people, you can feel like a ghost in the room. They talk over you. They don't mean to. They forget to ask your opinion. They don't realize it. They assume you're content with less contact, less involvement, less presence. But you're not. You still feel everything, perhaps even more deeply now. Life in your 70s and beyond becomes a kind of emotional tightrope. You crave connection, yet you hesitate to ask for it. You don't want to seem needy or burdensome. So, you stay quiet, polite, graceful. But inside, the loneliness gnaws, and no one warned you it would feel this way. There's a bitter irony here. After decades of building relationships, raising families, showing up for others, you now find yourself needing what you once gave so freely: attention, time, presence. But here's the truth I want you to hear today. This isn't weakness. This isn't failure. This is what it means to outlive the noise, to arrive at a stage of life where connection must be cultivated differently. What used to come effortlessly now requires intention, And yet, that's where the real power lies. Because when you recognize the quiet collapse of connection, you gain the ability to rebuild on your terms. Maybe it starts with one call a week, one shared meal, one handwritten letter, one walk with a neighbor who still sees you. Life after 70 doesn't have to mean isolation. It can mean refinement, depth over quantity, presence over performance. Let others chase the noise. You've earned something quieter and far more meaningful. Stay with me, because the next truth we'll uncover is one that hides in plain sight. How your body begins to rewrite the rules, whether you're ready or not. Here's something no one really prepares you for. That after 70, things that used to be small things suddenly become battles you never expected. A cold is no longer a matter of a few days of bed rest. It lingers, quietly, persistently. A small bruise, which once would fade in a few days, can now linger for weeks as a silent mark of time. And then a slight misstep on the stairs, which once made you laugh and move on, can now lead to physical therapy, or even surgery. After 70, your body is no longer the faithful companion it once was. It's still yours, still familiar, but it starts to have its own secrets, its own unexpected changes. You wake up one morning feeling strong, agile, clear-headed. The next day, just sitting down to tie your shoes makes you dizzy, off balance. No warning, no apparent reason. The feeling is more than physical. It's a silent betrayal. You've lived your whole life in this body, trusting it, relying on it, and now every day is an unknown. Will you be able to walk to the park today? Or will you turn around halfway, out of breath, exhausted? Life in your 70s and beyond is a constant lesson in adaptation. You can't rely on the speed of recovery like you used to. If you skip a meal or forget to drink water, your body will react, sometimes more severely than you think. But don't mistake this for weakness. On the contrary, knowing your limits is a form of strength. When you listen to your body, rather than ignore it, you're in control. When you rest when you need it, drink enough water, ask for help when you need it, you're choosing to be proactive rather than reactive. You may have prided yourself on being all in, but understand this. Wisdom is not about doing everything, but about knowing what is truly necessary. And perhaps the most profound lesson of the post-70s period is this. You don't have anything to prove anymore. You don't need to be strong for others. Now is the time to be strong for yourself, by loving your body, listening to it, caring for it the way you would care for others. Don't rush through the feeling of disappointment. See it as a reminder that you are still alive, still fighting, and you still have the power to adjust how you move forward, even if the pace slows down. There's a silence that no one warns you about. It doesn't begin with the absence of sound, but with the absence of acknowledgement. You walk into a room and nothing changes. Not a glance, not a shift. Where once your presence turned heads, sparked conversation, carried weight. Now, you speak, and people talk over you. Not out of cruelty, but as if they didn't even notice you'd started. This isn't loneliness in the traditional sense. It's invisibility, a fading from the center of attention to the edges of the frame. You are still here, still breathing, still thinking deeply and feeling profoundly, but the world, faster and louder than ever, rushes past as if you've quietly merged into the background. And that is one of the most painful truths about life in your later years. The fading of social presence. There is no formal goodbye when society begins to look through you. It just happens. at a birthday party, a family dinner, a community event. You realize you're waiting longer to be heard, repeating yourself more often, feeling like your wisdom is seen as nostalgia, your experience brushed off as outdated stories. You have lived through decades of change, of love, of loss, of triumph. You've held babies in your arms and buried friends in the ground, and yet, in this current moment, it can feel like none of it counts. This is the grief no one talks about. But here's the unspoken truth. You are not your reflection in someone else's attention. You are your memory, your courage, your voice. And if the world around you forgets to listen, then speak louder, not with volume, but with presence. Start telling your stories anyway, to your grandchildren, to your neighbors, to anyone who pauses long enough to hear. Because even if they don't realize it yet, your voice holds keys to history, to resilience, to survival, to love. In this stage of life, relevance is not something to be given to you. It is something you claim through clarity, compassion, and confidence. When you look in the mirror and wonder where that version of yourself has gone, remind yourself, you haven't disappeared. You've evolved into someone quieter perhaps, but infinitely wiser. And those who truly see, truly value, they will notice. So take up space, share your truth, sit tall in your chair, lift your chin, and don't wait for permission to be heard. Because in a world that overlooks its elders, your quiet strength is a revolution. It doesn't happen all at once. One day, you're driving to your favorite cafe without thinking. The next, it feels a little farther, not just in distance, but in energy. The road seems longer, the parking harder, the noise sharper, so you skip the trip just for today, and then again next week. And slowly, without a single dramatic moment, your world begins to shrink. This is one of the most unexpected heartaches of life after 70. Not the grand losses, but the quiet ones, the everyday rituals that once defined you, quietly slip away. The walk to the market becomes a chore. The spontaneous lunch with a friend becomes a logistical puzzle. Even the simple act of stepping outside feels heavier than before. It's not that you've given up. You still care. You still want to engage, to move, to live. But the rhythm of life, once effortless, is now cautious. You measure your steps, you plan around your energy, you second-guess whether today is the right day to do it all. And as those decisions add up, the walls begin to close in, not physically but emotionally. The places that held your laughter now feel like distant memories. The neighbors who once waved at your porch no longer pass by. Shops you visited for decades shut down. Friends drift away, not out of neglect, but because life moves them in different directions, or ends theirs altogether. And suddenly, what was once a wide-open life feels like a corridor. You start to wonder, is this what the rest of my years will look like? Smaller, quieter, less alive? But here's the truth. No one tells you. While your outer world may narrow, your inner world can still bloom. Joy isn't gone. It's just moved into deeper conversations, into the smile of a grandchild, into a book you finally have time to finish, into the warmth of a morning ritual that no longer needs to be rushed. You don't need highways and full calendars to feel alive. You need meaning, connection, and moments that matter. So pick up the phone. Call someone who makes you laugh. Join the local group, even if it's just a few people on Zoom. Sit on the porch and wave again, even if fewer people walk by. You are not fading. You're redefining what a full life means. Your value has never been measured by the size of your calendar, but by the depth of your presence. And if today feels small, make it meaningful. Because a small life, lived with love, is no less grand than a life lived in motion. Perhaps the most surprising thing about 70 isn't what you've lost. It's how you no longer recognize your own body. One morning, you wake up, your mind clear, your limbs steady. You feel fine, almost young again. You make plans. Go for a walk, garden, call an old friend. But a day later, or sometimes just a few hours, everything changes. Your legs are weaker, your mind slows down, your hands can't hold the glass of water you've held for 40 years. You bend down to tie your shoelaces, and suddenly, standing up isn't as easy. A brief feeling of dizziness, a slight tremor, an unexpected backache. You're not sick. Nothing serious enough for a doctor to name. But you know, something isn't the same. It's the quietest betrayal. Your body was once your faithful friend, the solid home you've lived in all your life. Now, it's playing its own game, without warning, without rules. And the most painful part isn't just the inconvenience. It's the loss of confidence. You start to hesitate before leaving the house. Not because you can't, but because you're not sure how you'll perform today. Will you fall? Will you be tired? Will you need to stop? That hesitation can make you feel small, vulnerable, even ashamed. But you're not alone. And you're not weak. Because true strength now comes not from not falling, but from being able to improvise when you fall and get back up smarter. The secret to aging is not to fight change, but to learn to work with yourself. Listen, adjust, understand. Don't blame. You start planning more flexibly. You rest when you need it, eat right, go to the doctor not just when things go wrong, but to proactively maintain what's left. The instability of your body doesn't take away your control. It just requires you to live with a deeper awareness. And when you start responding not with panic, but with knowledge and patience, you take back the most precious power of all, your own. Together we have passed through 5 silent doors that aging opens, each one carrying a challenge, a hard truth, and an opportunity to understand ourselves more deeply. From the shrinking of relationships to the increasingly erratic body, from the feeling of being overshadowed by a noisy world, to the space that gradually becomes quiet, and the moments when your own body becomes a mystery. These are all inevitable parts of life after 70, but none of them define you. Because in truth, each change is an invitation to become more mindful, to live more slowly and deeply, to appreciate every moment, every call, every glance, every step. Old age does not take away your value. It sharpens it, quiets it, distills it into the purest essence of who you are. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You've loved, you've lost, you've overcome. And now, you have the right to live as someone who understands the importance of the little things. You can be a light bearer, even if it's just by telling a story on a quiet afternoon. You can make a connection, even if it's just by sending a timely text message. You can live a life of value without making a fuss, just by being sincere. If there's one thing I hope you remember from this video, it's this. Aging doesn't take away your light, it just dims it, so that those who really listen can see it. And they're there. People who need you, who need your wisdom, who need the peace you carry. So, speak up, share. Keep moving forward, slowly, but meaningfully. Because life after 70 is not the end. It's a quiet soundtrack to the most important things you're about to say. If you find something in this video touching your heart, leave a comment below. Share something you've experienced after 70, or something you're afraid of, something you're learning to accept. Because who knows, it might just help someone else feel less alone. The true value of old age isn't in the years you live, it's in the truths you dare to share and the hearts you touch. Thank you for sticking around until the end. If you found this video meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share with your loved ones. Because sometimes just one well-timed word can change your whole day.